Hello everyone. So a little while ago I made a post here on YouTube basically just saying that I had found a really fun new way to play Garuda in Warframe, and I guess maybe it's not new. I don't really look at build guides by other creators here on YouTube. I kind of just do my own thing. But I found a new way to play with Garuda, and one of you asked that you would like to see how I made this happen. Essentially, it is a build that makes it so that Garuda will never touch the ground, has no need to ever touch the ground without any pause in between. And so I figured I'd show you what that looks like. Garuda's fourth ability is pretty strong, but even if you max it out with strength mod, it's not going to be clearing rooms with the same kind of speed or reliability that other stronger Warframe abilities have. I think one of its benefits is just how quickly it applies the slash status effect, and so that you can stack it with your other weapons, with your melee and your primary weapon, in order to really work towards that condition overload damage bonus from the condition overload mod. This isn't making the best build, this is about making a stupid build that is also really fun to play sometimes. So I guess a little bit about why I even started playing Garuda, because if you've watched my Warframe content, you know that I have been an Ember main, and the main reason I do this is because I have a preference for defensive abilities and playstyles. I like kind of just being immune to most things that could come my way, so that I can focus on doing things that I find fun rather than on the efficiency or the best in slot or doing anything like that. Rather than clearing rooms the fastest or having the highest damage numbers, I would rather just be immune so that I can move and attack and play the way I want to, the way that I find most fun in any given moment. So the reason I used Ember was essentially to use its second ability to pump the accelerant, or whatever it's called, and allow myself to negate damage by 9%. And then also use the adaptation mod to negate damage by another potential 90%, though I know that they're not additive. It's more of fractions of fractions, and I know that it's not direct, so it's not like I can reduce damage to 99%, or by 99%. There's back-end math in Warframe that I don't really care too much to learn about that allows the damage numbers, when they're reduced, to not be so broken. There's a limit on damage reduction, essentially. And that was working out for me for the longest time, but at the highest, I finally started noticing that Ember's old glass cannon abilities, glass cannon kind of presence in War was coming back. And when I was leveling up Garuda Prime and just playing around with it, I sort of had the idea with the new Archon Shard system to put in all health regen mods, because her second ability is a health regen ability, and you can use the Helminth to add Voracious Metastasis to the build, which I replaced the first ability with, because even though the first ability is extremely good for one-time high damage, it is limited when playing on console, when playing with a controller, because it is designed to be aimed with a mouse, and trying to use a right analog stick to aim that ability while you're holding down the X button to use the ability is not practical. So because that ability is better for people playing with a mouse and keyboard, I switched it to something that matches my aesthetic, essentially. So now I have a almost maxed out Garuda with lots of healing over time, just constant passive healing that does the same work as essentially reducing damage, while also keeping the adaptation mod on, of course, because that's basically required for high-end gameplay, if you ask me. That's one of the essentials that you should be grabbing and equipping, because there's no downsides to reducing incoming damage by 90%, none at all. But none of that has to do with this actual build. It's just sort of describing why did I switch off of my Hot Boy Summer build and switch over to what I call the Carmella Lives build, because, Garuda is very vampire-ed, so why not be a vampire for a while? I think that's a great idea. So what you're seeing me do on screen right now is essentially using this trick, so-called trick, to be able to stay afloat, stay in the air as Garuda, while constantly using the third ability to get my energy back, using the second ability, well, no, not using the second ability, but whenever I am low on health, using the first ability, the Voracious Metastasis that I took using the Helminth, to recover my health so that I can use the third ability to regain energy. The Voracious Metastasis isn't nearly as good as Blood Altar in terms of recovering health, but you can do it wherever you are, and you're able to resume an air glide pretty quickly after you pop the ability, after the animation is finished. And what you're seeing when I use the fourth ability here is essentially when you're in the air, Garuda's fourth ability kind of pushes you upward. It kind of launches you with a little bit of a hop that kind of impacts how you're supposed to aim the ability, but also allows you to use the ability to maintain some momentum and cover gaps if you ever end up floating out above a pitfall while you are using the ability. And with this ability as well, you can start using the aim glide almost immediately. And under normal circumstances, you wouldn't actually gain altitude just by using the fourth ability and by using aim glide that is well timed with the use of the ability. So that is why I equipped Boreal's Anguish, and this is actually where the accident comes in, because I did not intend to learn how to do this. I equipped Boreal's Anguish simply because at the time my Garuda wasn't fully leveled up and I didn't have the space, I didn't have the energy drain available to equip Rush so that Garuda could move a little faster. Garuda is kind of slow, and which is not really a problem for me. I mostly play solo, enemies come to you. But after focusing on defense, the last consideration I go for is the Warframe's speed. So I just kind of threw Boreal's Anguish on there just to not leave a slot open, which turned out to have an interesting effect. So the two parts of this that make it work out so well, that keeps Garuda aloft, is that the reduced gravity affects how high Garuda jumps when using the fourth ability. Garuda will float upwards more when the gravity is reduced. And by increasing the length of the air glide, it gives you significantly more time to execute on your other abilities to regain energy and to regain health. And you can use that air glide time to let yourself recuperate health, the health you need in order to get the energy and use the fourth ability again to gain more altitude. So when using the other abilities, you'll lose a little bit of altitude, but you'll gain significantly more with every use of your fourth. So at that point, it just requires good timing. And one of the tricks to keep it going is absolutely to let go of aim glide in between the animations of the abilities actually being used. You have to let go in order to reset it, in order to get that time back for your aim glide. Otherwise, you will, fall. So to showcase how extensive this ends up being, how effective this ends up being, I decided to just pop over to the Eidolon Plains, mainly because another one of the downsides of doing this is that most levels in Warframe have a reset box, a kill box at the top of the level, because they know that players will be good enough to essentially keep going upwards forever. So rather than break the math of the game. They would rather just reset you down on the ground somewhere so that anytime you try to fly out of the world, out of the level, out of the geometry of the game, they don't let you. They put you back in your place. But they don't do that on the open world maps. Instead, you just kind of hit a ceiling rather than being reset onto the ground, which allows me to basically never stop. So what you're looking at now is that I am using this rotation of using Garuda's fourth ability to stay aloft for as long as I can. Then once my energy starts getting a little low, I pop the third ability so that I get most of that energy back. If you have a flow mod equipped, you'll get pretty much the same amount of energy as you are losing with health, and then using Voracious Metastasis to get that health to come back to me more quickly. And I imagine it probably also wouldn't work out as well if I didn't also have Garuda equipped with all 5 of the Archon Shard slots set to 2.5 health regen per second. I would like to fill all of those with a Tau Forged Shard, but that's up to RNGesus, I guess, and I'm just going to have to do Archon hunts whenever it suits my fancy, and hopefully I get them. I've only been slightly lucky with Tau Forged Shards. I have 2 of them, but the other one is the red shard, and that doesn't help me with this particular Warframe. It doesn't help me with my Carmella Lives build, because I would rather just be able to regen so much health that, like with my Hot Boy Summer build, I can just stand in the middle of void lasers or take massive hits and be fine, because there's always a little bit of health regen. I'm finding at the highest level missions, though, that is still proving to be a problem, because no matter how much damage reduction you have or how much health regen you have, there is a few explosive attacks that just completely eclipse any amount of health that you could possibly gain. And the main solution to that would actually be to run with a party so that someone can res you, or just not care about losing affinity and let the party keep the mission going while you recover. But ideally, I would like to find a way where that doesn't happen, and I think the answer is probably just be skilled enough to notice when those heavy Grineer attacks are coming in and dodge them, as opposed to what I normally do, which is pretend like I'm invincible, because I normally am, and not respond to anything any of the enemies do while just doing my own thing. In other words, I should just try and get good, or, be happy with chilling out and being mediocre in skill, but have really high numbers to compensate. And boy, do I have some high numbers. High numbers in every location other than damage. Though I did address that a little bit by switching to Nautaruk as my main primary weapon, instead of using the Ignis and a Zaw with the Condition Overload as my main way of dealing with high health enemies. And I like it better, I do, honestly, but that's only because Nautaruk has more skill involved than other weapons. Like I talked about this in my Why Nautaruk is such a great bow design video, and if you haven't seen that, please by all means go watch it. I guess it will help explain why I don't approach Warframe from a mid-max perspective. I definitely have more priority on gameplay than on statistics, but at the same time I enjoy creating statistically superior defensive builds. I just don't enjoy creating statistically superior offensive builds. So I'm just, I guess, weird. Because the game would absolutely start becoming easier in a lot of respects if I went for offense instead of pure defense. Oh well, it's my preference. That's how I like to play, and it's gotten me through the whole of Warframe, so I'm not too worried about it. So anyways, yeah, if you have access to a Garuda and would like to try out this build, go ahead, have fun. It's very suboptimal, but it is very enjoyable to rain death down from above without ever having to be exposed to the aggro of your enemies. I'd also like to thank my Dark Roast producer over on patreon.com, Noah West. Thank you so much, Noah. I know we're kind of in a bit of an experimental arc. We're in a holding pattern while I am preparing some bigger future events that I hope to have released or be releasing throughout 2023. But at the current time, life has been busy, and so I've been preparing for the future rather than trying to maintain a consistent schedule right now. But if you want to support the channel, you can first do that by subscribing, and secondly, you can do that by heading over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/SocraTetris, and you too can become a Java Bean. Put your name up on the screen here. If you ever donate to me, even $1, even $3, I will keep your name in the credits in perpetuity. So forevermore, your name can be up here if you ever donate to my Patreon. I will see you all next time, and stay true.